DonInLondon, hello. It's the 13th of March. My video is all about recovery from addiction to substance and behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour equally addictive around people, places and things. I'm often thinking I'm right, writing the answers that I have to the problems I see before me. Not necessarily my problems, but your problems. And there is the problem. Often we think we know the answers for ourselves and other people, and often it's better to accept that we don't know the answers for other people and ourselves. So it's easy to get off balance very quickly, and by now you know I do these videos almost daily. In fact, I do them daily and have been doing them for several years. So what do I know these days? I need to take each day as it comes, be open to what is happening around me, and know that I don't know all the answers. And I know in the past where I thought I did know the answers, and they were unassailable from where I sat in the world, or stood in the world, that there was a lot of disappointment there. And what do people like me do, or what did I do when I was disappointed, depressed, or sad, or angry, or in denial? I used to drink alcohol, to get oblivion, to put a bottle of something between me and the world as it was or is today. So these days it's better sometimes not to know the answers, or to share that even if we do know the answers to what is going on in the world today, it's better that people come to the conclusion of what is the best answer for them, and let them be, even when they know it and don't know it. So what am I saying? Sometimes it's better to mind my own business about what's going on, or to accept that people have to find out for themselves as each day unfolds. And I'm reminded in all these thoughts that there are 6.5 billion people on the planet constructing answers which suit them about their daily living, or the big issues which face the world. 6.5 billion people, some with a bit of power and control, some with no power, no control. And life is just going along as it may. It's the way the world is today. So if I find acceptance of what is going on today, then I can find what is the best choice for me. And if I'm asked what might be the best choice, I could suggest. But always knowing that other people will find the answer and the choices which suit them best too. So my world is not about my world being my way. It's about being the way it is, living in reality, the true spiritual connection to what is going on, to see reality and the truth of now as best I can, and around that work out what are the choices. And that is part of letting go, the process of letting go and letting good things happen. Because even if the worst scenario happens, something good will come of it. A learning, an impression, something will happen which changes my attitude and my behaviour, and maybe changes the attitudes and behaviours of other people, beyond my control. Anyway, AA, the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, helped me find a way to keep sober on a daily basis. That is, not to drink, and then to find a spiritual connection to what is going on, to keep on trying to see the truth of situations as they are, and that they will never always suit me in my understanding of what should follow, because if there's a should follow, or it should be this way, I'm wasting my time. I need to go with how life is. So how does AA help me? I'll share the AA preamble in a moment. But I don't speak for AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. It's full of unique, authentic people, each with their own ideas and thoughts and feelings about how the world is today. So I can never speak for them. Everybody is unique and authentic in their outlook in this one moment, in this one day. So I prefer to let go and let life happen and see what choices I have around that. That's quite difficult when you know the answers, and that's the devil in the detail. Just because we know an answer which will work it doesn't mean that it's going to work on the emotional, spiritual level. So what is AA? And today's reading from the Daily Reflections reminds me about the spiritual aspects of living. So I'll share them in a moment. AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Which means that as a fellowship, if we only have one focus, as each group meets, each group of people in recovery meet, what you see is what you get on the day. People in happiness, people in pain, people joyful, people sad, people angry, resentful, and also happy to be alive today. Every sort of polemic or opposite you can possibly think of, we're all in there, meeting together, and we get experience, strength and hope from each other about how to stay sober one day more, the one day we're in. And I'm really pleased I can remember that. March for me is all about step 3, and step 3 March, 12 months, 12 steps of the AA program. It says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And I shared about chapter 3 in one of my most recent videos. Let go and let God, or let go and let good things happen. Let go being right, and let in other ways of looking at the world. So it's not my answer which counts, actually, as if it ever did. It's what freedoms of choice do I have around reality? What is the reality of today and yesterday? And you know, I've had a really good week, apart from having 1 or 2 injuries, which happens to me. I just seem to be accident prone. It's part of the things that I have to deal with diabetes and nerve damage. But what really can upset me more than anything, not so much the physical, it's the emotional. And one thing that I know for sure is that if we hurt somebody, they hurt back. So hurt people hurt, and are likely to push a bit of hurt in our direction too. So a chance encounter where we don't recognise a person for whatever reason can feel like a great big, oh dear, what have I done? And it may not even register on them, or it may register on them as a great hurt or a slight in some way. But we don't know until maybe we find out later. So in between finding out or letting life happen, let go and let good things happen, keep on the path which works to good, then the rest of life can amble along. It doesn't mean we forget. I don't know anybody forgets hurts, but we can try and put them right when we can, or rather just make our amends as best we can when we can. So gentle every day, and don't react badly because of it. So yeah, I'm saying this to myself more than anything else because it's important to me. I don't want to hurt anybody, and I don't particularly want to be hurt back, but it's going to happen because that's life. So March 13th in the Daily Reflections, this book, I don't read them out regularly like I used to. I'm sort of chopping and changing to see what suits on a daily basis, what's happening. But this one is pertinent to today. It says a world of the spirit. We have entered the world of the spirit, and our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. And that comes from AA's Big Book, page 84. The word entered and the phrase entered into the world of the spirit are very significant. They imply action, a beginning, getting into, a prerequisite to maintaining my spiritual growth. So for me, and this is just me, just my outlook at the moment, spiritual is the ability to cope with reality, and my spiritual growth is to continue to cope with reality as it is, not as I may wish it or will it to be. The spirit being the immaterial part of me, but it's my emotions. Barriers to my spiritual growth are self-centeredness and a materialistic focus on worldly things. Spirituality means devotion, a spiritual instead of worldly a devotion to spiritual instead of worldly things. It means obedience to God's will for me, or to the good, not my will, but working to the good of life as it is today. And that might sound very, very, I suppose, theoretical, but it's not. It's just an attitude of let's give good back, no matter what. So if somebody's hurt, don't hurt them more. And if we've hurt them, say we're sorry straight away, if we can, or when it's appropriate, or just clear off, as I had. So anyway, spirituality means devotion to spiritual instead of worldly things. It means obedience to God's will for me. I understand spiritual things to be unconditional love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control and humility. But spiritual is also the opposite of that, because we couldn't learn one without the other. Anytime I allow selfishness, dishonesty, resentment and fear to be a part of me, I block out spiritual things. As I maintain my sobriety, growing spiritually becomes a lifelong process. My goal is spiritual growth, accepting that I'll never have spiritual perfection. And with the world as it is today, with wars in Africa and natural disasters in Japan, for example, where the responses are and what's happening and the reactions and the mobilisation of help, we can all wonder what's going on, because what is going on? Those are good questions. What is going on when, tragedy is happening all around us and people are looking at self-interest as the motivation to what they do next? So in one area it seems that there is no self-motivation and all forces are mobilised to help people in a disaster of a natural kind. But when it comes to a political disaster or the subjugation of people for decades, our response seems to be lacklustre as a worldly outlook. I can't do anything about that except get on with what can I do, and that is to do what I can in my immediate sphere of influence, as if I have any. So better I just get on with things from time to time. But these big issues do bring us down, and the problem is, for anybody who's in recovery, we often see the big picture and we know the answers of how these things could be solved, yet there is no resolution to be had because there is no common will to actually get something done in a way which enables freedom of outlook and freedom of choice everywhere. So self-interest doesn't help us on the road to sobriety. And worse, when we can see that self-interest is the paramount force guiding some elements of how the world works, we can get no peace either, because we know the answer is different. And in the old days that would be a good reason to drink. And I was listening to a documentary on the Bible and what it means to another person, and they came to the conclusion that a lot of the parables, the stories that are in religious texts, are examples, metaphors for good. So we can have the right answer right next to us, yet no determination to make it so, or rather to make it worse, because self-interest seems to come to the fore. So the whole idea of being powerless, not in control, to exercise good choices based on what is open to us seems more appropriate every day that passes. And when I can help charitably or give as best I can without condition, as I often do, that seems one way forward. We can't change the whole world and how it is, and we cannot change generations of prejudice, but what we can do is not excise the prejudice in us, but we can be aware of where self-prejudice and self-interest rule us, when indeed it would be better to be more open, honest to the possibilities and unconditional support for people finding their own answers, the answers which are appropriate for them. Anyway, that's me for this morning, and more from previous years to follow. All about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. And my videos are a personal journey, sharing what I've learned over the years, what it's like to be sober, one day at a time. And my addictive substance was alcohol, so I'm a recovering alcoholic, and my behaviour could be equally addictive to work, relationships, materialism, anything to do with people, places, things, collecting, exercising self-will, learning what self-will was, letting self-will take over, or rather thinking I was in charge of life, my life, when I wasn't really. We are interdependent on everything. Everything is interdependent. It doesn't mean we have power over, or have power over things or people. Particularly if we have, then we're in a control mode, and as much as we're controlling somebody else, their behaviour controls us, and that's called codependence. So these days I prefer to be interdependent, making life choices based on what is in front of me and what I've learned so far. So, an alcoholic, 35 years of drinking. I don't know when I crossed the line, probably with the first drink, which made me feel different. It fixed something inside me. I felt warm, happy, joyful, relaxed, and I was just a kid. But it wasn't then full on from there on in. It was on and off, and then became more and more something which I used to fix me when I was stressed out, could not sleep, or was facing some sort of fear. And as time went by, obviously, if we are becoming able to fix ourselves, there is a dependency there. So I developed a codependency on a substance and then on behaviour, fixing myself by working harder, trying to improve my relationships, you name it, on and on and on. And self-will wasn't self-control, it became self-obsession, and then self-will run riot. So what keeps me on track these days? Well, family, friends, community, and a fellowship. And that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't speak for it, I just speak about me, my recovery, and how AA has been integral to my recovery. So I'm not a spokesman for AA. And I don't want to be, and I don't want to challenge how AA runs or anything like that. My job, if you like, is to share that there is a way out of addiction and into recovery one day at a time. So I do share about AA because it saved my life, and I lean on fellowship when life is going well, or whether it's just going okay, or whether it's going badly, because it's a collection of people who have wisdom about sober living and how to face reality. Facing reality on a daily basis without a fix. Or maybe, well, we won't go there. So, how does fellowship help me? Well, if I share the AA preamble and some of the readings and what it does for me, how it impacts, then job done. So, what is AA? I share the AA preamble and statement of intent, and it goes like this, if I get it out the right way. AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help other alcoholics to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I've already done some of this today with phone calls and helping somebody just make a difference in the way they were trying to approach something. They were trying to battle through a fear. And what I've learned is if we actually embrace the fact that we have a fear about something and ask for help in the situation we are, and that's exactly what they did. They asked for help. It had nothing to do with fellowship. It had to do with making making a decision to do something which they were afraid of, and they've done it, and they didn't have to battle it, and they're all right. So in real life, AA gives us the opportunity to get a toolkit called the 12 steps of action to change attitude and behaviour, and they work if we work at them. So I share daily reflections, this book, and in it covers the 12 steps and 12 traditions of AA. 12 steps are about open, honest, willing to take action to change our attitude and behaviour, and it's about action to change our attitude. So there's no fixing as such. We can't fix ourselves with an external, I don't know, suit of armour, if you like. All we've got is who we are, and we can develop our spiritual awareness, that is, the spiritual connection that we all have to everything that is happening. So this book helps me, and I don't always agree wholeheartedly with everything it says, because we're human and we have our own outlooks and we develop outlooks, and the written word becomes obsolete or historical, and then we find new words which are going on all the time. So for March 13th it says here, a world of the spirit. I agree with the sentiment. Don't ever misunderstand me. I agree with the sentiment here. We have entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. The word entered and the phrase entered into the world of spirit are very significant. They imply action. Always action is the key word here. A beginning, getting into, a prerequisite to maintaining my spiritual growth. The spirit being the immaterial part of me. Barriers to my spiritual growth are self-centeredness and materialistic focus on worldly things. Spirituality means devotion to spiritual instead of worldly things. It means obedience to God's will for me. And for me that's about truth, love, and learning wisdom from others. I understand spiritual things to be unconditional love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control and humility. Anytime I allow selfishness, dishonesty, resentment and fear to be a part of me, I block out spiritual things. As I maintain my sobriety, growing spiritually becomes a lifelong process. My goal is spiritual growth, accepting that I'll never have spiritual perfection. And what a good place to finish in that book. And I was thinking about it because, you know, we do develop our own outlook and attitude. And as I say, in principle, I don't disagree with that. But I've altered the words so I understand them in the context of my life. And so I've understood it this way. I understand spiritual to be everything. Unconditional love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control and humility. Anytime I find I am selfish, dishonest, resent and fear to be part of me, it too is spiritual because it's part of my learning. Sobriety and being spiritual is a lifelong process. Spiritual being continues, accepting there is nothing outside spiritual. It is my conduct and choices which make my life what it is today. So the quality of my life is about the quality of my life always for me. Everything is spiritual for me, the good and the bad, because without the bad, or what we consider bad, we don't learn. If it was all good and perfection, there would be no purpose, really. We wouldn't make any progress. So we start young and find life ain't quite what it could be. We get self-obsessed, dependent on fixing, and become alcoholics or something else. And then we find recovery, and we find that everything we have done has had a purpose in enabling us to find the way which is good, to good choices, and experiencing spiritual as we make our way. So what helps me in all of this is always the serenity prayer to God of good conscience. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and always for me, the wisdom to learn the difference is always just for today. recovery from either addiction to substance or behaviour, my substance, alcohol, my behaviour, trying to be perfect, a perfectaholic, never so, and worked hard, workaholic, played hard, playaholic, relationshipaholic, you name it, any old holic. And the gift today is that most of those holicisms are more in balance, that is, on a daily basis, just for today. And what makes it possible is being part of a fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't speak for it, it never speaks. As leaders, there are none. Or there are trusted servants, as they are called, people who keep the organisation side working of the fellowship. And it's a fellowship of men and women. And the preamble shared at every meeting gives the game away completely. And it's very settling. It puts me into the moment of now when I read it out. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes, and it certainly doesn't oppose or support my videos. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help others to recover, other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I'm stumbling over my words this morning, and I think I'm very tired. It's been a long week of things happening. Death of my sponsor on Monday, end of a relationship on the same day, and just trying to make sense of life and keep with a change in regime for my other maladies, type 1 diabetes and clinical depression. So it takes a lot out of me, and I'm doing my best, and it's progress, not perfection these days. So my video is all about recovery, as I said, and what helps me is going to meetings of AA. I went to 2 meetings yesterday, one at St. Philip's, just at the top of Earl's Court, and one at the, where was I? Park Walk, forgot, Park Walk down the King's Road. And both meetings are called step meetings. The one at St. Philip's was step 6, all about defects of character and how to deal with them. And the one last night was all about step 12, the second half of it. How do we share the message and live as we can to the 12 steps of the action program of AA for individuals. So the basis is open, honest, willing, and making progress. And step 3, which is step 3 reads as this: made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And it's all about, I suppose, underpinning life with good conscience, or an understanding that there is a higher power that we can appeal to, or exhort to, or pray to, or just understand that we're not God and we're not the higher power, not even in our own lives. That, as Shakespeare said, we are merely players and we're not the chief critic. All these things come from the AA books, so please don't think these are words which I've put together. I guess I've been around in AA long enough to be, I suppose, almost brainwashed. I've had my brain washed away, if you like, from the alcohol that used to be there, and now I have something else to contend with, sobriety on a daily basis. What helps is not only the meetings, which I think are essential for my recovery daily, is books like this, Daily Reflections, which 12 months, 12 steps. March is step 3, and I read out what it says for this day. So, a world of the Spirit. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. And that comes from AA's big book, page 84. Not sure which edition, probably the 4th. Could be the 4th. The word entered and the phrase entered into the world of spirit are very significant. They imply action, a beginning, getting into, a prerequisite to maintaining my spiritual growth, the spirit being the immaterial part of me. Barriers to my spiritual growth are self-centeredness and a materialistic focus on worldly things. Spirituality means devotion to spiritual instead of worldly things. It means obedience to God's will for me, or my good conscience, maybe. I don't see myself as the higher power with good conscience. It's just that everybody has a good or bad conscience. I understand spiritual things to be unconditional love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control and humility. Any time I allow selfishness, dishonesty and resentment and fear to be a part of me, I block out spiritual things. As I maintain my sobriety, growing spiritually becomes a lifelong process. My goal is spiritual growth, accepting that I'll never have spiritual perfection. And you know, I think a lot of people in the 70s and 80s were on a spiritual journey which was about controlling the spirit. Or maybe I've misunderstood what they were about, but a lot of books were there empowering people with their spiritual progress, and maybe gave it a flavour of hierarchical status, that a person could be more spiritual than another person. And the gift is that when we understand that spiritual is seeing the moment of now just as it is, as clearly as we can, without so many denials and without so many filters, alcohol being a huge one for me, I get to the spiritual condition of now, the reality of now. And as some people say, spirituality is the ability to cope, just simply cope with what is going on in the day. And sometimes we feel that we may have a superior knowledge of what is spiritual, but in fact it is, well, maybe for me, I'm just saying it's a fact for me. Yeah, I've got to be careful here, because if I actually say, you know, your idea of spiritual is wrong, then I'm wrong too, because it's what we learn and come to understand as we go along this path of life. So I do concern myself with people who may feel they've got a better spiritual understanding than me. Actually, it's just a better understanding of the truth of now, hopefully, and they can inform me with their wisdom, and that's why I go to meetings, experience, strength and hope. Wisdom learned over the years by other people, so maybe I don't have to go through the same traumas, although it seems likely that whatever deficiencies there are in me, I need to deal with as life offers the experience. And that's what happened last night. I was listening very carefully to what somebody was saying, and it was very clear to me that unless we experience life, the 12 steps remain what they can be in a book rather than living steps. And the living steps for me mean that I have a framework to understand what is happening to me, what is happening with me spiritually in the moment of now, what is happening emotionally in the moment of now, and physically in the moment of now. So mind, body and breath, all about now, and that is about breathing in the world as it is and exhaling and understanding. So they are some of my thoughts on spiritual, but it's not the only way. You know, we have to make up our own minds how these things go. And as Bill sees it, I refer to this one quite often. I just read them out linearly if they feel appropriate and I have the time. It says here on page 46, true ambition and false. We have had a much keener look at ourselves and about those about us. We have seen that we were prodded by unreasonable fears or anxieties into making a life business of winning fame, money and what we thought was leadership. So false pride became the reverse side of that ruinous coin marked fear. We simply had to be number one people to cover up our deep-lying inferiorities. True ambition is not what we thought it was. True ambition is the profound desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God, or good conscience. And I say good conscience because that's my touchstone, if you like, to my understanding of God, which is truth, love. And God works through people who have wisdom, or no wisdom, simply because we start off with no wisdom. We start with a blank page when we are new to the world, and then we learn by what we see and do. So we all have our life of hard knocks, the school of hard knocks, the university of life. The gift that I've learned in AA is there is no graduation day. We simply have another day to live our lives and be useful, to love and be loved. How hard is that? Well, it's blinking difficult for most people. So the spiritual path is simply progress and not perfection. And sometimes it's tormenting. And I've said it before, you know, the idea that serenity, when we ask for serenity in that serenity prayer, serenity is just living the good and the bad of life. So when I say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Life is, as it is, a spiritual journey. That's all about AA. And I'm one of millions, it seems, who feels it's important to get the message out there about what it's like to be sober. And contrary to popular belief of those who drink, being sober is actually a better way of living. And the only reason I can say that is, after 35 years of drinking, what I found in sobriety is life works much better, much more smoothly, and we're much more able to deal with anything that happens on a daily basis. And that doesn't mean it's all good and all roses. It means that we deal with the good of life and the bad of life as it materialises. Anyway, coming to a couple of other readings. As Bill sees it, the Fellowship's Future, page 207, and it says, "It seems true that AA can stand on its own feet anywhere and under any conditions. It has outgrown any dependence it might once have had upon the personalities or efforts of a few of the older members like me. New, able and vigorous people keep coming to the surface, turning up where they are needed. Besides, AA has reached enough spiritual maturity to know that its final dependence is upon God. And as you know from my understanding, God is truth or God is love. And maybe God works through people. So in terms of the sentiment that is there, I'm in wholehearted agreement. As to each person's understanding of God, that is a personal matter and a personal issue. We cannot assume the belief that other people have. We come to believe whatever we come to believe. And he goes on to say, clearly, our first duty to AA's future is to maintain in full strength what we have now. Only the most vigilant caretaking can assure this. Never should we be lulled into complacent self-satisfaction by wide acclaim and successes that are everywhere ours. This is the subtle temptation which could render us stagnant today, perchance disintegrate us tomorrow. We have always rallied to meet and transcend failure and crisis. Problems have been our stimulants. How well, then, shall we be able to meet the problems of success? And that's from a letter in 1940. And, in essence, if anybody gets a hold of the 12-step program and makes it work for them on a daily basis, we take the good and bad of life, and we make the best of what we've got. And I think essentially, when we're doing that, the serenity prayer helps as well, which is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the second reading, walk in dry places, believing in justice. What goes around comes around is a popular saying. It's often used to suggest that certain arrogant, unprincipled people will eventually receive their comeuppance. It conveys the idea that there's a hidden justice at work in human affairs that assures all injustice will eventually be punished. But if it works to punish, this hidden justice also rewards right actions. And this is more important in our working of the program. If we act from good motives, we will always find that our work is rewarded in some way. No alcoholic who performs a service in the fellowship goes unrewarded. Quite often the reward is simply a personal sense of well-being and growth in character. But these may be more important than money or recognition. Justice is one of the cardinal virtues, a godlike attribute that human beings strive to understand. Believing in justice is believing in the hidden power that orders justice in all things. I'll view my will today as something that is controlled and ordered by a just power. Reward and retribution are built into the scheme of things, but I'll focus more on actions that bring the right kind of rewards. And I've come to understand that the most important thing is, even if we're right, it doesn't mean that we have we don't have then the right to say justice is ours and take, I suppose, the law into our own hands. And really what we need to understand is, if we are right-minded and we understand our choices best in the moment of now, we are likely to get the right result. So if we are fair and open, honest and willing, it's more likely that we'll get that back than the reverse, which is unfair, dishonest, closed and unwilling. And in my world, I know that some people probably do deserve some sort of comeuppance, but it's not for me to be the person who wields the big stick. Indeed not. People have to come to their own conclusion about how life is, which is probably a bit of a Buddhist way of looking at things, or a Zen way of looking at things. But, what I know today is I'm not in charge. I've only got choices made good by outlook and circumstance. So there we are, a little bit more in the morning edition.